For the first time, it appears that the United States and Afghanistan have committed more civilian deaths in Afghanistan as opposed to terrorist organizations, including the Taliban. So according to this report, for the first time since the United Nations began documenting civilian casualties in Afghanistan a decade ago, more civilians are being killed by Afghan government or by the Afghan government and American forces than the Taliban and other insurgents. So just to give you some numbers, the UN actually said in its quarterly report that pro-government forces were responsible for 53% of civilian deaths, but insurgents were responsible for the majority, 54% of civilian casualties overall. Also, the agency reported 581 civilians killed and 1,192 wounded during the first quarter. That's a 23% decrease in overall casualties compared to the same period in 2018. So it's good that overall casualties are coming down, but I think it's also incredibly important to understand what our actions are abroad and how civilians, these are innocent people who are not part of the military, who are not engaging in war, how they're losing their lives as a result of the wars that we've waged and the wars that we continue to perpetuate. And the reason why I say it's important is because oftentimes when you see like superficial coverage of terrorist attacks, of course, people wonder why? Why are they doing this to us? Why is there hostility toward the Western world? And the, in my opinion, wrong answer to that is that they just hate us because they hate us, or they hate us because they're jealous of our way of life. They hate us because of our religious freedoms. No, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that our actions allow some of these insurgents and these terrorist groups to easily recruit people who are angry that they lost their mothers or their children or whomever in their family as a result of our actions abroad.
Absolutely, you have to respect that people are seeing you guys are supposed to be helping us and you're hurting us more than these people that you say should be hurting us, and that's bizarre and confusing, and it doesn't mean step away from it completely, but the US only steps in when it's to our benefit anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, because there's so many countries in Africa that we don't touch. That we don't even look at. So the US only steps in when it's to our benefit, and that's just what it's been like. And sometimes we step in intentionally to harm when it's to our benefit. If you look back at decades ago, what we did in Latin America. But so yeah, it's no question why people who live in this country would hate America.
Absolutely. Well, and more importantly, I love that you brought up, the fact that, we will push for regime change or, we'll fight the war against terror. And it's always done under the guise of spreading democracy and helping people. But you're right, there are so many people in disadvantaged situations. By the way, there are people in disadvantaged situations in our own country that, go neglected. But it's never really about what the government claims the wars are about, right? And look at what we're doing in Yemen. We're helping the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen effectively carry out a genocide. I mean, there's famine, there's a blockade of any type of humanitarian aid, and we're helping them. We're helping them logistically. We used to help them with fuel, and it continues. And even though there was a bipartisan resolution to stop our involvement in Yemen, Donald Trump vetoed it. But I want to be clear in saying that this is not unique to Donald Trump's presidency. This has been going on, and it certainly went on during Obama's administration. And when there was a question about whether the casualties in regard or in relation to the drone strikes was the right thing to do, the Obama administration responded back by saying, well, the civilian deaths are collateral damage. Well, referring to people's lives, innocent lives being lost as collateral damage is not the way to go.
No, and these are things we've been doing for decades, almost if not centuries, in terms of taking our own interest in claiming that, hey, we need to spread democracy when it's really something that benefits us. And we see a lot of countries that, unfortunately, I think a lot of Americans tend to think are bad places or they're bad people because we've been fed this narrative. And when you really get in there and you see how much the people on the ground, the real citizens, they're just completely stuck in the middle of it, and how much pain and loss and suffering that they experience as a result of just greed. And yet we just sit there and as a nation. We're collecting whatever we can financially and having a good time with it.
Yeah. And you know what's so scary about it is because like it's easy for us to look here and see it's very clear. This group is a terrorist group. This group is bad. This is a terrorist organization. What are you thinking? But just even having this conversation, I guess I can't imagine how these teenagers and people in their young 20s in the midst of that don't know who to trust. And that's scary. That's even scarier for us.
It is scary, you know? And like just think about it in our own context. So imagine, I don't know, any random country decides that they're gonna carry out in America what we're currently doing in Afghanistan. And so there are drone strikes, aerial strikes, and our family members are dying and they're completely innocent. They don't want to be involved in this war. They're just living their lives and they're devastated. And then at the same time, you hear the rhetoric about Americans in this country, and all the rhetoric indicates that, oh, Americans are dangerous, don't allow the refugees in, they're all terrorists. If you see them coming on a ship, turn them back. I mean, imagine the way that you would feel as an American if there was a group that emerged that said, we're gonna fight these people, we're on your side, and we're gonna help you defeat these people who are terrorizing you and destroying your lives. I mean, it's easy to recruit you. So look, I'm not saying this, and no one here is saying this as a way to justify what terrorist groups are doing, of course not. But it is important to take a step back and look at US foreign policy and figure out a way to go in a different direction, because what we're doing right now is only perpetuating this dangerous cycle.
We're not saying, that's the whole point of this. We're not saying that this is okay. We're saying that what we're doing is helping the cause.
Exactly.
And that's not what we want.
We can almost take the analogy even like deeper in terms of looking at our policing and the organizations, especially in minority communities, and where you end up having gangs or whatnot to essentially, you're going against the police. And if you're just a citizen in the middle ground, you start thinking police are the bad guys too, because they assault you, they claim they're trying to keep the peace and whatnot. And so it just becomes this never ending cycle. And unfortunately, that's what I think we're doing abroad.
The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.